The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hey, this is Matt Landry, the voice of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars The Clone Wars. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars. This is where the fun begins.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars episode 154. Okay day?
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, aka Old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Please be sure to share this podcast on Twitter and Facebook, and let us know how we're doing by leaving us a review pretty much anywhere you can. We'd really appreciate that. And so on this episode tonight of Secrets of Star Wars, we're thrilled to take a closer look at Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4, which officially is titled Chapter 20, The Foundling. I mean, this was Mandalorian boot camp, giant flying dinosaur babies, new signet for Bo-Katan, Grogu's Jedi temple escape, all in one episode, and a short one at that. I mean, let's get right to it. So, joining me tonight to unpack all this, first up, Kathryn Laffrey. How you doing, Kathryn?
Real good.
Good. And Patrick Mason, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, and we're going to just, as I said, jump right in with the kind of abbreviated plot synopsis. And I'm just taking this mostly from, I'm taking it from Wikipedia. I'm tweaking it just a tad. So we have here the description on Wikipedia for Chapter 20, which is directed by Carl Weathers, which is pretty awesome. So we got Grief Karga jumping behind the camera here for this one. And then written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So when I heard that, I kind of, part of me expected Ahsoka to show up, but you know, we got another one coming up. Filoni helped to write episode 7, so we'll see. Anyway, it says, Din Djarin introduces Grogu to Mandalorian combat training. Grogu wins a training match, but his opponent Ragnar is captured by a large raptor. Bo-Katan gathers a hunting party, which includes Din and Ragnar's father Paz Vizsla, who leads them to the raptor's nest. The armorer forges a new piece of Mandalorian armor for Grogu. As she works, Grogu has visions of his rescue from the Jedi Temple, which we'll come back to. Vizsla's overeagerness to save Ragnar disrupts Bo-Katan's plan and leads to a difficult aerial rescue in which Bo-Katan and Din rescue the boy unharmed, kill the raptor, collect its chicks, and earn the clan's respect. As the armorer replaces Bo's pauldron, lost in the scuffle with the raptor, Bo reveals her encounter with the mythosaur. And so we're going to come back to all of that later. I should have said spoiler warning ahead, but as we always say, I'm pretty sure everyone listening to this show has hopefully seen Chapter 20, so can't be mad at me for that. So
Not me. You spoiled it. Oh, man.
That would be an interesting twist. All of a sudden, it's like, I didn't see this yet. So, but yeah, let's just jump right in with that Mandalorian covert culture. So, what do you guys think of that opening scene? Just any fun, or interesting thoughts or observations about the a day in the life of this Mandalorian covert?
Oh, it was just like jumping into summer camp. I coach varsity sports, and we run our summer camps. And when you get all the little kids coming in to show off what they can do, and I have actually been at different times in my life, Grogu with a parent telling me, go ahead, you can do it. Show them what you can do. The parent telling my kids, go ahead, show them what you can do. And the coach on the other side of it going, really? Or the kid who has to play against that kid, really? So yeah, it was definitely sports summer camp all over again.
Right. How about you, Patrick?
I don't know what they were shooting at.
That's what I was saying.
There's a way to do target practice, and just shooting randomly over a lake is not the way to do target practice. In my experience.
Well, I was laughing even as a golfer. I was remembering going back on the team in high school, like at the practice range, and like you just want to chip, and the coach is like, aim at something, like you bet, like aim at that flag stick over there, like try to get it close to that. Like,
yes, don't just hit the ball, try and put it somewhere.
Yeah, we're not just teeing it up into the lake.
Right. I was just wondering if they were trying to stir up another crocodile turtle thing, you know, which of course makes an appearance later. But yeah, I was like, well, they're hanging in there with this location, which
or scare it away.
Yeah, kudos to them. But in this same scene, I just wanted to ask you guys. I don't know if I heard some people talking about this and heard different theories, but what was your reaction when you saw the contrast then with what's going on there and little Grogu down by the shore with those little rock crabs? How about you, Kathryn? What do you think there's a significant difference here they're trying to show between him and this culture, or what do you think?
I mean, you can tell they haven't quite thought of how to incorporate him because he is so small. And in the years of coaching, there were times where I would have my daughters there, little kids, and they're usually like sitting off in a corner somewhere. And what are they usually doing? Just rolling the ball back and forth. So it's like, okay, memories of that. But at the same time, those are the kids that jump in and play the best someday when people underestimate them.
That's true. Yeah, there was some commentary I saw somewhere online that was just speculating that, and who knows, like we know he's very attuned to the Force, of course, but it was interesting that Din comes up, he's like, okay, time to stop playing with the rocks, and it was like, is he just calling them those, or is he not paying attention as much to his surroundings? It's just, I don't know if that's really something we're supposed to see there or not, that like Mandalorians don't see as far, right? Maybe as Grogu does. I don't know what you guys think about that, or they
don't see the little things.
Right. Yeah.
Which that kind of made sense.
Like I get this, having watched the show and seen Boba Fett and whatnot, there's just this underlying feeling of like, I can't get hurt, right? I mean, I have this Mandalorian armor, and so I do these things, or I adopt these tactics that a lot of times make no sense for the situation. Like, I'm going to charge ahead into these 10 people and they're going to all shoot me. Like, no sane person does that except the Mandalorian because he's got the Beskar armor. But I think that causes him to do a lot of things that, or overlook things that could be threats just because, I've got the armor, it'll take care of me and I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
I saw that, definitely the fight with the turtleisk or the crocoturtle or turtle gator or whatever it is. Still haven't landed on a name I really like, but just the combat tactics against that thing to belie this, hey guys, come on, you don't put the bombs on the shell. Like, right. You throw it down the throat. Guys.
Right.
So you do kind of get that feeling that maybe there's a lot of stuff they just miss.
Right.
And maybe, and possibly that's why one of the reasons Din Djarin was allowed to leave the covert back in, season 1, when he was like the only one allowed out to go bounty hunt. Because when you're a bounty hunter, part of that is sleuth, right? You have to be a sleuth. You have to be able to pick up on those small things and search those small things. So I'm wondering if he has a little more farsightedness to him.
Yeah, he might. That's a good point.
But then, the rocks.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I know this is something that's been coming up a lot, this season, and we've talked before so much about these faith themes in Mandalorian, even down to the titles, right? Like we've had, I'm not going to remember all of them, but the sin, the believer, there's redemption themes. There's all these titles, and of course now apostate, convert,
right? Yeah,
it's
like really thrown in your face on this one,
right? Yeah, like you can't avoid it, and I know it's something we've been talking about in the chat too a little bit. It's just this ongoing question of like what I'm curious to see what you guys think at this point of any thoughts you have about what it really means for Din to be redeemed. I think we kind of expected that, or we sort of maybe have a better sense. But what do you guys think? I'm curious about Bo, like for Bo-Katan, what she might be thinking here, or what, I guess both sides of it. What do you think she might be thinking of this whole redemption thing versus what the armorer, this community who has pretty clearly pointed out before in the storyline here that, you know, they consider her partially responsible for the loss of Mandalore, but they're being seemingly so welcoming here to her. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that too, since that's something we didn't get to talk about before. You know, I don't think any of us were any of you on last week. I was not.
Yeah.
Or were you? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe just kind of continuing that. Just want to see what you guys think.
I mean, with her being without a family and without her own little group either, they've all left her. I just feel like she's just trying to figure out where does she belong. I think she's just as lost as anyone in this whole thing. She's trying to figure out where she fits in, especially within her own culture, within her own people. Yeah, she seems to have gone on some memory lane trips as she went down to help Din, and, you know, just kind of looking back at her past and trying to see the connections for her.
Well, and just off, like to ask you, Kathryn, off that, I'm just curious if you specifically are thinking do you think she has an ulterior motive right at this point, or do you think she's pretty open right now to possible ways forward?
I think she's trying to figure out what her next step should be. Because she doesn't seem like she's being too plotting in all of this. Of course, it's hard to tell when everyone has a mask on what they're really thinking.
Right.
We'll get into more of that later. But
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't in her tone seem like she's plotting a takeover of the Watch, or, you know, or try to be the great leader anymore. I think she's fallen too many times, or she's just trying to figure out what her next step should be.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, so she has this, and we get kind of a real feel that it is a full-blown kind of religious experience by just seeing the myth of war, right? She sees it, and you get that shot, and she comes out of the water, and after that, she doesn't take the helmet off. And she's very quiet, right? After that point, in comparison to her nonstop kind of chatter going into the mine, and she's quiet. And then the very beginning of episode 3, she has her house destroyed, right? So I got no friends, I got no family, and now I got no house. And I've just had this religious experience, you know, with this thing I didn't really even believe in.
She was kind of mocking it too, right in the plaque, right? You know, she was like, "Oh, a mythosaur layer, okay,
and,
unicorns."
You know, and her position on the Watch is that you know, there are a bunch of religious fanatics who cost them, you know, who she's pointing the finger at, like, you are part of the reason we lost Mandalore,
right?
And so this is very much a potential, you know, Saul knocked from the horse kind of a situation. And it's very interesting, the conversation she has with the armorer, because you kind of get the feel from the earlier seasons that her and the armorer are sort of, you know, diametric opposites. They're you know, the armorer has her, you know, the Watch, and Bo-Katan has her people, and they're sort of divergent groups, and they're supposed to be doing other things. And now you have Bo-Katan sitting there without one of her pieces of armor, so she's been partly de-armored but redeemed, sitting with this armorer who's now making and now incorporating the whole new symbol. And I know we'll get to that, but but it feels to me like Bo is on a potential, like, very mystical kind of journey here. But it's just very very interesting to me how far into sort of the religious mythos space we've gone, considering that Star Wars has almost always played all of its chips in that arena into the Force, right? All of the religious, mystical, mythological stuff has all been Force-based, and this is something very different. And so it's very interesting to see that play out in the Star Wars universe.
No, I agree. And I was just going to say, I think it's you're right on with something that's really been kind of making me scratch my head here. And I'm feeling like it'll come full circle somehow, or they'll address it with all of this, because, you know, when she first, in that the Heiress episode in season 2, I think that was, right, when he first meets her and she takes her helmet off and he's put back real quick, and she first uses that phrase, right? Always, you know, children of the Watch, like, oh man. We had seen Death Watch, or I guess Death Watch with their emblem and everything, rescuing him in his flashbacks in season 1, but I'm not I don't think they've really established yet what the difference is between Death Watch and Children of the Watch, because they're clearly affiliated in the whole Concordia thing. But Paz Vizsla, or Pre Vizsla rather, and Bo, when she was part of Death Watch in her late teens or whatever, they had their helmets off all the time. So like, I'm not really clear where this really rigid, because they don't just talk about it like it's a custom. They talk about it like it's the Mandalorian thing going all the way back thousands of years. And that's where I'm not really clear yet where that comes from. But by the same token, it'll just be interesting to see where, you know, you're right, like this religious sort of attitude here about all of this for them, that this is so profoundly deep, as Din says many times, right? Weapons are part of my religion, as he says a couple times. It's just really interesting to see how they'll flesh that out. I'd like to see more about Mandalorian eschatology, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like, what's the end game? You know, like there's no discussion of eternal life here. It's like this is the way, like life is about hardship and adversity and hanging together in the tribe. And if you do it the way they say, you can be part of it. You know, if you don't, you're out, and then you go wash in the water and come back and hey, welcome. You know, so,
right. Yeah. What is the long-term payoff of being a member of, you know, following the creed, right?
It kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the times when like I've been really beating myself up over some sin I've committed, or, you know, it might be the 50th time, you know, and like I'm standing there, and I had a priest. I'll just share this really quick. This priest one time, I was really like stressed out. I was nervous, and I was like, oh, and I was acting as if this was like the sin to beat all sins, you know. And not, you know, I mean, that's really how I felt, I guess. And I was just so ashamed of it, whatever. And I go in and I confessed to him, and it was this big, it was a big penance event where there were just so many people there, and you didn't have a lot of space, but so many people were talking to priests and stuff. It was just this energy in the room. It was really neat. And he's sitting there like this with he's this old guy, and he's looking down, and I confessed my sin, and I'm all like, you know, emotional and serious about it. And he listens, and he just looks up at me, and he goes, "Take a number, son." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Are you sorry for what you've done?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you gonna try harder? You with the grace of the Lord?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, God the Father, mercies." It's just, you know, and it was so like, and it was such a beautiful, like, I mean, confession's one of my favorite sins, because like I love the advice and everything, but sometimes I love when I just go in there and the priest is just like reminds me that even the worst I can do is nothing compared to God's mercy. Right. And I do get a little bit from this, like all the, you know, like now they go through a lot more than I did with almost drowning and being killed. But the idea of like, did you do the thing? Okay, welcome back. Yeah. So, well, let me just jump here quick. Ask you guys, did you think we're going to get to the main hunt and everything here quick. I just want to mention in passing, what'd you think of Grogu's little one-on-one match with Ragnar here? Any takeaways from that?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Hasbro's going to like double their money this season. Just all these little accessories for Grogu.
But I mean, the puppeteers nailed the facial expressions and the movements. I mean, especially when he takes that first hit. If you watch it in slow motion and see his little like, what? Just awesome. And then especially when he's looking back over his shoulder at Din, like, Dad, do I have to keep doing this? You know? Yeah. It's like, don't look at me. Take care of him.
I love that. Yeah, that was, you know, I'm not the guy. Oh my goodness. And then that other line, of course, the one does not speak unless one knows.
Oh gosh, I'm using that one when I coach this fall.
Yeah, I have so many coaches and teachers this week that are like, "That's going on the board."
Oh yeah,
it's like, what'd you think, Patrick, about that little duel?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, and I mean, it was fun, definitely. Especially the go between Din and Bo-Katan. It's kind of like the mom and dad sort of a thing.
Yeah.
You know, are you sure he's ready? Yeah, he's ready. He'll do fine. Are you sure this is a good idea? He's so small. You know, that sort of playing out. And
then Bo's like, yeah, he's just like my dad. He's just proud of you. You know, like put his little thing on.
Just strap up and take it.
Yeah. I did find it interesting. Like the kid brought up, you know, he doesn't have a helmet on. Like, well, he can't say the creed yet, and that does bring up a good point. And like, when do Yodas get the ability to talk? Like, when does that happen?
Yeah.
in their lifespan. Like, how old is he going to be before he can take? How much Mandalorian training is he going to get prior to being able to do the Creed and put on a helmet?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for like him and the Creed and the group, and like how does that dynamic work? Like if the normal course of events is you don't go into certain training programs or you don't do certain things with everybody else until you've been fully brought into, you know, the group, then what does that mean for Grogu? Is he going to be an outsider for 50 years? Is he going to be a foundling for you know, decades? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
The only foundling to retrain is his next mentor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's I was thinking like they have to resolve that eventually because they can't have a scene, you know, like season 25 of The Mandalorian, like the armor is dying and she's like, "You're still not ready, Grogu." Okay, like we're gonna have to figure something out with this, but yeah, and they can't, you know, you figure they can't do something like. Yeah, you can't really escape that aging. Like, it's not like something they can just jump it or something. I mean, you know, it's gonna be a key piece of this. It'll be neat to see how they do this. But let me jump here too, just kind of jumping ahead a little bit. Of course, as if this kid, by the way, Ragnar's just. He's got to be the most unlucky character in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, he's the most accident-prone character since Jar Jar, which is ironic. Which will come up later. But anyway, but yeah, like this. And not only was he captured, but I love how when you finally see in the nest, like the thing like spits him out too. Like it had him. Like, oh, come on. But so of course he goes off. I guess they were doing too much jetpack training because nobody has enough fuel to get down the canyon, you know?
Yeah.
But
finally
then
we get to see the limits of the jetpacks.
Yeah. Indeed.
They just can't fly forever,
to be
folks.
Yeah. But I was really, I gotta say, I was really happy to see, like, I had this noticeable, like, yes, kind of thing, like when, like, they're running out of fuel, and then Bo-Katan's just, you know, it's like, yeah, I have a jetpack, but I have a ship too, guys. Like she really quickly establishes herself in this episode, I think quicker than I thought, and I want to get your guys' thoughts here too, and she's really, like, taking the reins and demonstrating this leadership. Was that something you guys were surprised to see, or were you kind of expecting her to step up around this point?
It didn't seem out of place for her to jump in. And I have to say, that poor little kid, man, he must smell really good to monsters. You know, he's standing by the lake twice and he's drawing on 2 different monsters. But her taking off after it with the way the sun was and everything, I thought of King Kong right away.
Oh, yeah.
In the Kong movie where they're like flying the helicopters, all of a sudden you see Kong, it was like, another monster movie.
Yeah, it had that vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like, what planet are they living on? Like, why did you guys pick this one, huh? Like, all these giant monsters.
I guess, well, she does. And the armor says something about, you know, it's part of their to face adversity and all this. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're doing that. I guess, you know, it wouldn't fit to have them, you know, on I don't know, some beach in Scarif or something, or.
Yeah.
Well, how many foundlings did they have to feed to that thing to figure out what it does? You know, it's like, if you scare it, it eats it, or, you know, kills it. You're like, what?
Yeah. It's like, we have a lot of experience with this. I'm like,
like, why? Okay. Why do you have a lot of experience with this?
Man, I'm sorry. If I was one of those kids, I would not leave the cave.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely no. Yeah.
It's time to go out and train. You know what? I'm good.
But this is so cool though, because that they go out, and a lot of these themes we've been talking about come to a head here, where, you know, like, again, Bo-Katan's demonstrating this leadership. They go out there and everybody's kind of chipping in. They're all working together. That's the first we've really seen that. And then we have this really cool campfire scene. And there's 2 things I noticed, and I just want to kick it over to you guys. The Bo-Katan's humility, I really think is interesting to look at. That, you know, here's, because she, as you said, I think, Patrick, earlier, she did not show much of that in the Minds of Mandalore episode. You know, she's so grim at the beginning of the season. We said all she was missing was some spotchka there, you know, just like sitting, you know. But then here she is all of a sudden, like, asking Din, you know, for like cultural awareness advice. You know, it's like, okay, how do I eat? What do I do with, you know?
Yeah.
Do I take my helmet off? Or it's like she's serious about not screwing that up. But then, and this is something I knew we'd probably want to talk about. I was excited to get into this as Catholics, right? That here's this communal event, right? The shared meal, the most fundamental, human communion. And what do? Okay, let's everybody go off where you can't see each other and hide. And I was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing, like, anti-communion kind of communion. And so just, let's dig into that. Whatever you want to go with that.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of was when I saw them split up. I'm like, wait, they have a creed but no communion? How do you stay together? How do you? And then I, just jokingly, I did put out there, what, no dinner dates? So no wonder they need foundlings is what a lot of people comment. It's like, okay, it's not very intimate. But I did
like roses and candlelight, and then you just go to the next room and eat. Yeah.
Go eat. But I did look up some information about the benefits of sharing a meal. And it was fascinating, the information that came up especially for businesses, where they talked about the importance of having that shared lunch, because so many times people work through lunch now or just head off and do their own thing and come back because they don't want to be bothered. Let's just get this done. But there was like report after report that was talking about that it promotes productivity. It helps boost morale. Obviously, their trust grows between people, and it's just kind of like lowers the stress level. And you look at the way the Mandalorians live, they don't trust their own unless you like follow exactly letter of the law, and they don't seem very relaxed. They're a very high stress group.
What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, a very strange. Like,
yeah.
What caught me first, honestly, was the just the dumbness of it from a tactical nature.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to take the point at which we're all the most vulnerable. We have our primary piece of armor off, which is the helmet, protecting the primary squishy part that'll cause everything else to stop working. And most of us are going to go out into the dark and eat and leave the one person in the light able to actually see. I'm like, this is like this is yet more of that I'm invincible stuff the Mandalorians have going on. The armor will take care of it. You're not even wearing the armor. Like, it's
oh my gosh,
taking it off. And so, like, from that perspective, but then the other one, like, how do you guys get to know each other? Like, I mean, sitting down and having a meal together, it's the perfect excuse for then getting to know whoever it is you happen to be eating with, because you have a purpose, right? You have something you're both doing, so you can go back to, well, why are you eating together? Well, we both had to eat, kind of a thing. Yeah. And then so, I mean, what? There doesn't seem to be a way to build any kind of community there. Right. And that's kind of exactly what we saw.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And what a contrast between Bo-Katan having to deal with all of this and knowing what her sister had. And it had to have been strongly established, because the Mandalorians that were the pacifists that weren't wearing all the armor had an incredible culture set up, including meals. Because when we see her flying on her ship and having this elaborate meal with all the senators and representatives, it's like there's obviously a culture of a shared meal in there somewhere. Right. Why they reject that is shocking.
Yeah, and it's so fundamental, and it's just so that was just a neat shot of Bo-Katan there. The only, unless I'm mistaken, the only time in the episode we saw a human face, right? Well, except in the flashbacks, that she's completely by herself. Campfire. So here she is, like, she's been welcomed into this new family, and she's a member. She's been redeemed, and she's part of this community, and they're gone. And she's still alone and sitting there. And it's like, it's obvious to me. It just really felt so clear that, like, this is good. We're getting somewhere, but, like, it can't really just continue this way, though. There's going to have to be some, I don't know. I still feel we'll see the armor without her helmet even someday at some point. I don't know. I just think the helmets are coming off. There's also no way that Pedro Pascal is going to go one season without his helmet off. So, I'm wondering, because I'm like, all this stuff to build up to their redemption. We only have 4 episodes left, right? You know, I guess it's possible he won't take it off, but I don't know. He had it off once in season 1 and I think twice in season 2, right? At that little terminal.
Yeah, the terminal.
And then at the end with Grogu. So, oh, we'll see. But, well, let me maybe jump here over to, we have the rescue. Maybe I'll just wrap up with the rescue and then we'll cut back to Grogu's flashback. Might be better to do it that way so we can focus on that for a little bit. But, we have the rescue. That was pretty cool. Just the rappelling and or the, I guess not rappelling, but climbing up the sheer rock face. And I mean, like I said before about Hasbro, I mean, this is do you guys know? I haven't heard anything about this. I'm just off the top of my head. Do you know if these are all actors or if they're fitting some of these Mandalorian enthusiasts, from the different groups of Mandalorians at the conventions and stuff like that? Because, Dave Filoni and them go way back. Like, and I know they had a lot of the 501st guys and gals show up in, as stormtroopers and stuff in previous seasons. Have you heard anything about that? I just wasn't sure if that's been announced yet or anything. I don't know. Or if they're all actors. I wasn't sure.
All I know is some of them seem like professional rock climbers.
Yes.
That's what
in that one. Because there were the moves there that I was like going, that looks like legit rock climbing.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Saying to myself that, I didn't see any of that going on at the training camp, but obviously there's some rock climbing as part of their training.
Somebody's like, they're like, like the one thing, like, this was supposed to be next week's unit, like.
I didn't get my merit badge in this.
See, that would be like if it was U.S. Army. No, like back in my day, like, okay, like, of course this would happen because the one thing I didn't prepare for. So, but they get up there. Were you guys surprised that, Ragnar is, I ruined it with the, Wikipedia's reading earlier. I meant to delete that part out, but Paz's son. Do you think he's, well, and it's called the Foundling. I'm assuming that's referring to Ragnar and Grogu probably, but was that the impression you guys got, that he's a foundling that Paz has raised? Or that it's his actual son? I mean, like kind of what Kathryn is getting at. I don't really know how that would work with all their armor and helmets, and I don't want to get into that, but
what are you guys able to take off exactly?
Yeah, it's not I'm going with a Jedi-esque celibacy thing here with this sect is my guess, and all these foundlings, because they're always talking about the foundlings, but that was, I didn't I don't know if he's a newer sort of addition here, or if he was hidden away in that covert that got wiped out on Navarro, because he wasn't there seemingly.
Yeah. There's a lot more kids that we've ever seen. Yeah, I just keep wondering, where are they from? I hope they weren't stolen.
Yeah, I hope they didn't pull an empire on this and go raid a bunch of villages and take their children. And that's that. I mean, it just raises further questions. There's no I mean, I could see that either way. I could see this as somebody Paz raised. I could see it as Paz's actual kid, but in either of those circumstances, I have further questions.
Right.
And I don't know.
I will say I'm glad that they are, they're always raising questions, but at least they're answering some too. Because this might be a good place to jump to Grogu's flashback here. Because I don't know about you guys, but I thought they would do it. They teased that there would be some more about this in this flashback.
Before you go to that, I've got a question about that big creature.
Oh, yeah.
What is their eating process like? Because if she had Ragnar in her gullet or whatever for 24 hours plus, how did that kid come out going, help me, and be as dry as a bone? I'm just like, did she throw him down, pick him up, eat him a couple of times, spit him out? I don't know.
If she had him in there, she can't have any sort of stomach acid on par with the Sarlacc, because, Boba couldn't last that long inside there, so I don't know.
I just kept going, how long was that kid in there?
I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I totally thought he was the heat signature over the thing. That was so gross. So
no, I knew it was going to be baby raptors. Like the minute, like, oh, there's a heat signature, and Paz jumps, and I'm like, oh, no, this is going to go sideways real fast.
Oh my gosh. And of course, just to jump ahead a little bit, the rescue scene was pretty awesome, and the setup that I think we'll finish with the armor and Bo-Katan's interaction, but of course the setting that up with her losing her shoulder piece. I forgot the name of it, as a pauldron, I think. But did you guys also get this sort of Jurassic World vibe off the like the giant croc coming up, and
yes,
and there's always a bigger fish.
Yes, yep.
Right?
There's another. Yeah, Qui-Gon was indeed right. So
yeah,
and then
I love that how they it's like, oh, and the raptor's in the water now.
Bam.
Yeah.
It was like solid. Now I got a good size differential for how big that thing really is.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and did you guys get the when they have the resolution there, the camp at the end, and the armor? That was neat too. The really high praise of like, now she's gone from like Bo-Katan's redeemed to now she's done the highest honor that can be done of saving a foundling, which is cool. But I gotta say, I was not expecting. Again, we have some more foundlings, and they pull those suckers off the ship. You guys also think that those things are getting ridden here at some point?
Oh yeah.
Tamed.
Oh yeah.
Tamed and flown.
Yeah, it's gonna be heavy metal flying.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that movie, but they're gonna fly those giant chicken things.
Was that Don Felder, or who played? I forget the guitar part for that. Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
I don't remember, but
I'm envisioning we've got like the toy box or the toy set of like Bo-Katan on the Mythosaur, and then 3 Mandalorians on those things. It's bound to happen. So, but over to this this flashback scene. I just want to set this up quick and then kick it over to you guys. Well, first of all, it wasn't. I had different theories. I had different ideas of who it could be. Never expected this guy. And personally, I don't think they could have done a better job with it for a lot of reasons. It just makes a lot of sense, and it ties up some interesting loose ends and connects some dots that are interesting that I didn't think they connect. But I gotta say, I don't think I was pessimistic, but I think I tried to stop hoping too much that we would get exactly what we got and more, in the sense of finally filling in this gap of like, as I was talking to a friend a couple weeks ago, they're like, it's frustrating me because I love Grogu, but he's been in our lives now for almost 4 years, and we still like this big glaring, like, who is he? Or at least how did he get out of the temple? So what were your guys' first thoughts here watching this? Just play out. Did you recognize who saved him at first? Did you how'd that go for you as you watched it that first time?
I mean, I recognized the movements in the actor when he was doing his little lightsaber duel.
Mm.
And then from that moment on, I was like, oh my gosh, that really is. And then I'm like trying to take the fight serious, but all I could see was Jar Jar, who I love. I love Jar Jar.
Same.
But it's like, I know he's trying to fight serious. And it was just like, okay. I
He's
saw all the little cartoon versions of Jar Jar fighting in my head. It was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is awesome.
How about you, Pat?
I didn't figure it out. Like, I was like, man, he looks familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend who watched it earlier in the week prompted me. He was like, this is gonna be an interesting, cameo. You're gonna get it. And I'm like, I know this is it. Because but I can't put my finger on it. And then I'm watching the end, and the credit comes up, and I'm like,
no
way. That was a good way to do that. That was solid. That was good.
Well, and just for anyone who might be a little hazy on just who it was here, of course, so the character is Jedi Master Kelleran Beck. BEQ, otherwise known, according to his Wikipedia entry, as the Sabered Hand, which is funny because my Google Doc kept trying to change it to the Severed Hand, which has its place in Star Wars, of course. But at any rate, it's just so interesting because now I caught a little bit of the Jedi Temple Challenge game show that they did, just for fun to check it out. I thought it was interesting that, at the news at the time, what was that, 2019, 2020, where they're like, hey, the guy who played Jar Jar has been, recast as this Jedi Master for this game. And I thought that's kind of cool, And I think, like you said, Kathryn, I was never, I don't think I was ever like a hardcore anti-Jar Jar guy. He annoys me. I definitely I think he's grown on me over the years. I remember being at least a little disappointed with the character and having my moments. But what he became, of course, in the sort of the cultural zeitgeist, or whatever you want to call it, this hatred that I think what's really beautiful, and maybe not, some listeners might not know this, I'm sure a lot do, but when doing some of the research for this, I found out that, the negative press and the negative publicity in the years after the prequels were so intense for Ahmed Best that he contemplated suicide. And I think he even went to the Brooklyn Bridge and was thinking of jumping. And praise God he didn't, and has over time gotten to the point where he's even said, and this is something I'm hoping we'll get to at the end of the show, that he would enthusiastically be willing to play Jar Jar again if the circumstances were right. And it's just one of those things where I think it's good for all of us to consider the importance of how we go about criticizing. You know, and I've made plenty of criticisms on this show, my own opinion of certain things, from sequel trilogy and stuff. But I'm never going to go on here and be like, oh, I think Daisy Ridley's the worst person in the world and she should be ashamed. That's not my opinion, first of all, but just saying, Ahmed Best got so much direct attack and got this nasty sort of vitriol that sometimes I don't think we think that through enough about what our criticism of a TV show or movie or, as much as we love it, it's not worth putting someone's life at risk. So I just want to see what you guys think about any of that and the flack he got for Jar Jar.
Well, it's not like it was his fault, right?
Right, that's the other.
He was an actor playing a character in the way the director was telling him to play it.
Right.
I mean, when actors get flack for stuff, it better be because they did a bad job acting. Otherwise, you're throwing your hate in the wrong direction.
Right.
The person who deserves your vitriol is the writer or the director or both. and yeah, him and Daisy Ridley and some of the other characters from the sequel movies, and or actors from the sequel movies, and you're just like, why are you hating on these people? They did their job. That was their job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I just got to give him credit too, because the Jedi Temple Challenge didn't get quite the negative publicity that Jar Jar did, but its publicity wasn't that great either as far as a show. And I think they were going for that Nickelodeon. You guys remember those old school Nickelodeon game show things and the obstacle courses. Yeah. But I think. Now, I didn't notice on the second watch. I got to watch it again. They are saying as they're being attacked. I don't know if you guys heard them. They're saying two or three times, get him to Kellerin. And I didn't notice that the first time. Did you know? Did you? I hadn't known the name, so I'm just watching it. And so for me, it was so cool, seeing him. And he gets up and the elevator opens, but I know Ahmed Best. And as soon as he steps through it, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, because I think we had joked on the show, and other people we joked about, what if Jar Jar saves him from the temple? And I'm just dying watching this. I'm like, he did technically. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. So
I think it goes beyond technically.
Well, yeah.
That Naboo ship.
That's what I was going to ask.
Owned by a senator with the senator's guards. It's gotta be Jar Jar the senator, right?
Well, yeah, and that's there were some people that speculated there was a shot of a planet or something that I don't know if we've seen yet in one of the trailers, where someone was speculating is that Naboo? And I'm like, well, please. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I saw somebody was talking about that possibility, that they said that the queen on Naboo was known for hiding Jedi, and then was taken out because of it. So I haven't, heard any of that before today. I was like, wow, that's a story I want to look into now.
Well, and Chuck, I don't know if you guys read Aftermath. I read some of it, but those early novels in the Disney era, that fill in some of the gaps after the original trilogy. And I think the last known mention of Jar Jar in the timeline, which is after this flashback, but somewhere in between there, he was working as he was sort of ostracized, poor guy, by the folks on Naboo for his role in putting Palpatine in power. Yeah. But he was working, I read somewhere, he was working as like a clown or street performer, like with kids and like orphans, and that there was even some mention to him having some involvement with like an orphanage or something on Naboo. Someone can correct me, but I'm thinking to myself, like, and when did that start? Because I mean, yeah, unless I'm wrong here, I think the last time we saw Jar Jar is he's in Padme's funeral procession. It's also interesting that Ahsoka was there too. We found out from Tales of the Jedi. So I my head's just spinning now with the whole like, where, you know, this is going to overlap, I guess, with when Padme passes away, right? I mean, like, so somewhere in there we know that Jar Jar is on Naboo sometime around when these guys are going there. So I'm really just, I would love to see something like that. I don't know.
Of course, all of this made me go back and watch season 1, episode 1. Because I was like, wait a minute. How did Grogu get from the temple to Naboo to why is he with those pirates?
Yeah.
And not only that, then you think about it, it's like, wait, those pirates are not working for the leftover Empire cloning freaks.
Right.
They're not turning Grogu in. So who put him there, and wasn't he safe there? And now he's not, you know,
well,
it's like,
yeah, and that's like 25 years or whatever. I mean, because what is it? It's the temple attack is what, like 19 BBY or something?
Yeah,
or,
so it's like 20 years between. Yeah.
Well, it's 20 years till like Hoth. It's another 23. Yeah, and then this show, like Mandalorian's like 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So like we're pushing 30 years since the temple escape. You know, and I'm like, what was he behaving like when he was 20? Now I'm wondering. He's like even smaller baby. You know, and yeah.
I was so happy in the flashbacks he did look like a little baby with his little button nose.
Yeah, he was a little smaller.
It was cute.
Oh my gosh. And you can hear, I don't know about you guys, like you can totally hear, like Ahmed Best doesn't say a lot in this episode, but like if you can hear Jar Jar in there, obviously, you know, he's just like, don't worry, kid, it's going to be, I was like, please say it's used to going to be okay. Like, come on. Darn it. No, he didn't do it, but so, but anyway, that's of course a big mystery, and we'll have to see where that goes, but that was exciting. And I personally was really happy that he didn't just save him and get him off somewhere, but like that they went off together. So there's ostensibly going to be more of their journey that'll be shared, which was something to look forward to. But then I just want to, kind of swing back here, and as we start to get near the end of the episode, we really want to focus in here on this armorer and Bo-Katan scene at the end here. And this is something, honestly, I had a particular take on this that I didn't really think of any other take, and then I'm hearing other people have different takes on it, so I want to see what you guys think. So when Bo-Katan asks the armorer, about the mythosaur, which I didn't expect her to do, I sort of took this as, and she's, the armorer, I think, seems pretty clearly to be thinking it's some kind of vision, or maybe it's not literal. But Bo-Katan really keeps driving that home. Like, I saw a real one, an actual one. So I'm not entirely sure, like the armorer just said, this is the way. I don't know really if she believes her or not, but I heard a lot of people speculating about, like, well, did she really see one, or was it just a vision? I'm feeling like she saw a real mythosaur in the water down there. So I don't know, did you guys have different takes on that, or think it's a vision or something, or
hey, I saw that mythosaur.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, like,
we all saw the mythosaur.
Right on the screen. Din's the only one who didn't. No. I guess she doesn't have a witness though, right? That is maybe an important point, because she asks him if he saw anything. But she didn't say to him, right? Like, hey, did you see that mythosaur? Like, she's like, did you see something down there? Like, okay.
Or maybe the armorer has seen it and doesn't tell anyone.
Well, I wondered about that. And I wondered too if another thought was, when he said, I didn't know it was that deep, and she said, it didn't used to be, or it wasn't, but the bombing kind of unsettled it. I'm assuming that had something to do with, I know Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World just burst all of my fun, balloons with the Loch Ness Monster recently, but of course, like they brought up, of course, those theories we've heard about, like, well, maybe it's, in caves underneath or something. I was like, well, so I was thinking of that, and there's another SQPN crossover.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what, oddly enough, that is another thing that struck me about the crocoturtle. I'm like, how is it living in those lakes? Because that is one big mamma jamma. Yes. And those lakes are not that big. Are they just like ultra deep? Like, what is the topography here? Because Jimmy told me via his podcast that this wouldn't work.
Yeah. And
so
the
King
feeding?
Kong's world within the world isn't real?
Yeah. Unless they have those giant raptors falling in the lake frequently. I don't really know what kind of game they're eating either, right?
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a lush, verdant like forest or anything. It's pretty bare. It's kind of a desert. How is this thing alive and so big?
You're right.
The rule for like fish and reptiles is like they'll keep growing as long as they have enough food.
Right.
What has this thing been eating?
Like, would it have killed them as they're flying the jetpacks? Like we see off in the distance, like a giant herd of something. Like a herd of Ragnars. No, I don't know. What is, the one thing we know it really wants to eat. No. My theory is the only reason it killed the raptor was because it thought it still had Ragnar in his stomach. Or in her stomach. So, yeah.
Smelled it.
Gotta get that foundling.
Gracious. Oh. So you guys think the mythosaur's real? Huh? Is that the?
Yeah, I mean, it showcased it like it was real. Like it didn't seem visiony. It didn't have any of like the vision elements you typically
like
see directors put into shows. It struck me as no, for realsies, I saw something down there.
Well, and I just think practically, I can't imagine that after all this time and effort and like bringing this culture, right? This Mandalorian subculture that came out of nothing, right, in the original movies at all, and has become so much to the fans. I don't think you're gonna, like, oh no, it wasn't a real mythosaur. It was just a vision. No one's gonna be happy with that.
Well, I like the armorer's response when Bo-Katan pushes the point. She's like, no, I really saw one for real down there, and the armorer is like, one will see many strange things when you walk the way or the path or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, that's a pretty solid way to take something like that in stride, right? Then again, you don't know if she's like freaking out under the helmet. Like, that's the thing. It makes everybody seem like super stoic, but in reality, who knows what's going on back there?
Yeah. Well, and she's the armor is the one who brought all of that up in the first place, which was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to do this. Because, you wouldn't just say that. Just like the people that say like, well, we don't actually know if Thrawn's going to ever show up in live action. I'm like, yeah, he is. Like, there's like, you don't say
He's
that.
Brought everybody else in. Come on.
Like, come on. Like if they brought in Luke, they're going to bring in Thrawn. But yeah, it's just I'm really curious to see. It's I can't quite think of exactly the connection, but there's something like a Christian connection with this. Just you'll see it. I think in my own life, I've seen it once or twice. Nothing too wild that I'll share, but we see these moments in the lives of the saints, right? Where when someone first starts getting really serious about their faith, like that's when the demons come, or when the pressure really comes on. I've friends who told me multiple times, some priest friends who have described sometimes that collar as like a target. Like the moment that thing goes on, like it's just a magnet for the bizarre, but also these great opportunities of grace. So it'll be really interesting to see. What I'm really curious about is if we're gonna get I can't remember the character names, but the guys who abandoned Bo-Katan. I can't remember the real names either. For some reason, all I can remember about it is Sasha Banks. I forget what her real name is. I just know she's Snoop Dogg's niece. Just for those who are interested in trivia. Apparently, she got interested in professional wrestling when he took her to like see some professional wrestling. I was like, can we get a Snoop Dogg cameo? Like, and make him a Mandalorian. But there is, I'm wondering if they're going to get some of those folks back. And we've also heard that, I think it was officially put out right a while back that, and I had forgotten this, that Christopher Lloyd, who I love so much, from Doc Brown himself, is officially on the cast list for this season. You know, as
Weren't they saying he might play Bo-Katan's dad?
You know what? I hadn't even thought of that, but they just said an aged, Mandalorian. That would be so cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll say Great Scott, but I'll hold out hope. I have the guy,
Great,
the panelists,
Scott.
the panelists can see it. Maybe I do have, well, maybe not. I have a little, one of those, they sell them at Walmart. One of the, it's the Back to the Future, the time machine. I have the DeLorean on the memorabilia shelf behind me.
Yeah. No,
no, that's a good thought. I hadn't thought of that.
I had the Mr. Fusion as my wedding cake.
Oh, is that right? Nice. Oh my gosh. I haven't seen him in anything in a long time. And I've always loved him. I loved him in Star Trek, as, what was his character's David? I can't remember any of it now. Was he in Wrath of Khan? Wasn't he the,
he was
the
one
Klingon.
of the great
not Wrath of Khan,
he was,
this is what happens. The secrets of Star Trek people are just slapping their foreheads right now. Like, Mike, don't do it. Don't try to swim in that pond.
Which one was it? Number 2. No, 2 is Wrath of Khan. 3. Is he in 3? I want to say.
Was that Search for Spock?
Yeah, Search for Spock.
Yeah, he's in that one.
Yeah.
Isn't he the one that kills Kirk's son? Right? He's the main bad guy. I can't remember his name for some reason, but yeah. I want to say he did it again later as a different Klingon, but yeah, Christopher Lloyd. I know he's coming, and then there were some others that were rumored. We'll just have to see. But my point being, I think there was one clip we saw in one of the trailers of another Mandalorian domed looking city somewhere, and it didn't look like Mandalore, at least unless it's a flashback or something. It was really lush, and at least that's what it looked like. So I don't know if I have to go back and watch that again, but so yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. Do you guys have any predictions for next week or anything? It's been kind of hard to predict.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I feel like Dr. Pershing has to come back in, right, somewhere, because we have to see what happens to him.
With all that, yeah. Good gravy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well,
see how much of his brain is left.
Right. Well, yeah. And I forgot to mention, like, Moff Gideon, obviously, because Giancarlo Esposito is very much in this season. So, I mean, there's only a few episodes left. So,
yeah, it's weird. Like, we got that first episode, and it felt like this, the redemption arc was going to be the whole season, and like, nope, done on episode 2,
right?
And now we're at episode 4, and I'm kind of like, we're running out of episodes, guys. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and it'll be. I mean, Pedro Pascal had said something cryptic about. I don't think there was necessarily too much to make of it, but he had said something cryptic about, Grogu and Din kind of coming into their own and potential disagreements or something that seemed to suggest that they would be put at odds a little bit. And I don't think with the age of Grogu here, at this, he's pretty early developmental stage. He's not like teenager, like teenage Grogu. I think of like a teenage Groot was such a funny thing in Marvel. So we're not going to get that kind of thing, but I am curious, like, you're not going to have Grogu like having second thoughts and being like, well, maybe I should join Moff Gideon. Like, but I wonder, and I don't think you can just have him kidnap him again, because we've done that. But I mean, he seems to still want Grogu, so, because we still don't really know who Grogu is, right? Or what he's about, or
and yeah,
it can't, there's so many questions still
from the whole TED talk that the doctor was giving at the beginning of that didn't make sense to the rest of his storyline, but did give us this little tidbit that he had been playing with combining genetic samples from different hosts in order to make a whole new, creature. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, what is Grogu exactly?
Yeah.
Is Grogu even Grogu? Like, is this the original? Or does he just
that's
have
interesting.
some of his memories, because he's partly him, but also not him?
Yeah.
He's something else.
That's interesting.
And he was created in a lab and then stolen by those pirates and hit on that planet. And that's why he was down there.
I know that came up in season 1, that people were wondering if Grogu was genetically made or if he was
right,
like actually. But I thought that was clarified in that.
I think Kuil said something about it. He said he didn't think he was, because he said he had worked in the gene farms or something. There was some random reference like that. But I mean, maybe he's wrong. You know, I don't know.
I don't know.
I just thought the doctor wanted him because of the high midichlorian count, you know. So I know that, you know, in some of the non-canon books, they talked about the attempts of cloning Jedi and how often they failed because it was, you know, a hard, you know, trying to accelerate the growth fast enough without messing them in the head because of the Force. So that could be all playing into it.
Because that's a long investment, right? You know,
Yeah.
like even on Camino of them, like 10 years to get them to be like 20, 25, 30 or something like that. You know, that's long.
And you start thinking about, okay, what characters could play that kind of long game?
Yeah.
And it's not Thrawn, and it's also, you know, you come back to like one or two people here
right.
who you always come back to.
Well, and I keep thinking like it'll be interesting to see if they do anything with this. But, you know, another thing I'd kind of forgotten about for a while, but somebody brought up recently. And I was like, oh, yeah. It just feels like it can't be a mistake that Grogu and Anakin are exactly the same age. You know, maybe not to the day, but that they are, you know, in canon, they are born or arrive, however you want to look at it, the same year. And I'm just like, that seems significant, especially when, you know, the only two others that we've ever seen at all of this species is Yoda and Yaddle, you know. And we have, of course, established that, you know, it is a sure thing that if you look like that and are green and have those ears, you know, you just have crazy, you know, Force powers. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's like when I heard that Grogu and Anakin were the same age, it made me think about the three, the father, the daughter, and the son.
Mm-hmm.
And how he talked about how there's always that balance that has to happen. So was Anakin and Grogu supposed to be the counterpoint to each other?
I wonder. It's almost like somebody pointed out, and I'm hazy. It's been a long time since I read the Harry Potter books, but I know that there was something in one of the last books. It wasn't in any of the movies about like Neville. Forgive me if, you know, there's Harry Potter fans out there, but I believe Neville was sort of like a backup to Harry in the strange sort of
Neville,
like, or there was some sort of like,
basically,
you know,
both Neville and Harry, because of their birth dates, could fit the prophecy.
That's right.
So there was a question mark about which one it was, and ultimately Voldemort, by picking Harry, caused it to be about Harry. Like otherwise, it was nebulous, and because Voldemort did what he did, he caused the prophecy to be about Harry.
Well, that's just an interesting thought in of itself, because it's like, again, back to Grogu's age, you know, like this, you're looking now at completely uncharted territory for the story, where you guys remember in Visions, there was that one, did you watch the Visions series?
Oh, yeah.
You know, there was that one, I only saw it once, but there was an episode that was like those Jedi, like it was, I think, super far in the future, and like there were no lightsabers anymore, and that there was that whole big, it was interesting to me because it was so different, right? It was just so far out into the potential timeline, and I was like, you know, I mean, you know, you can jump, like what happens if you jump 300, 400, 500 years from now? I mean, everybody else is gone. I mean, long gone, centuries gone. I mean, Grogu, if he lives to Yoda age, you know, you're talking almost as much time from now till when he dies as has passed since Tar Vizsla, you know, the first Mandalorian Jedi. So like it's for their people, for that kind of cultural development, and wondering where the Jedi goes, because I mean, we don't know where he is during sequel trilogy stuff, but you know, you have Rey going off at the end of Rise of Skywalker, and that's only 25 or so years, I think, after this point of the timeline. So it just, there's a lot of cool questions of like, where is Grogu when he's still relatively young, right? You know, and Rey is out there somewhere. So yeah, I think about stuff like that a lot too.
He's Purgle surfing.
Yes. That's gotta happen, right? You know, those little Funko, like the little cutesy Funko Pops with him like in the Stormtrooper helmet. Like you gotta have one like,
Riding a turtle. Yeah, solid.
Oh, he thought riding in the daddy front backpack on IG-11 was fast and exciting. Like wait till he's out there in hyperspace, a little bubble helmet on or something. So I'm running out of room in the office. I would put it up here somewhere. So. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, we're that's pretty much all I had for my notes, and there's so much more we could get into here. But just any closing thoughts? You guys had any final stuff you want to mention that we didn't get to, or?
Well, just one little art thought. Since I do a lot of liturgical embroidery, I loved the gold embroidery on what's his name?
Oh, Kelleran.
Kelleran Beck's
Yeah.
robe. I think it was the first time I noticed beautiful embroidery on a Jedi's robe. So I was like, ooh, there's some significance to that.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Pat?
I think it was interesting, the conversation that that the armorer was having with Grogu, I guess to Grogu, while she was making him his, I can't remember what that's called. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, his little piece of armor.
Roundel?
Rondel.
Yes, yeah, Rondel, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The thing that deflects swords, which you gotta ask yourself, why do they have that? But so he's got that little rondel with the mud horn on it, right? Because in part because he's the ward of Din, in part I think personally because he helped kill the Mudhorn. It was partly his kill.
Yeah.
But he's got that chest piece now on top of the chainmail underneath it, and the conversation about adversity and overcoming things while he's flashing back to I've been in this kind of terrible situation before and was helpless. And maybe you get kind of a read into why he decided to take the Mandalorian path instead of the Jedi path. Because in the Jedi path, what he got was this, terrifying adventure of, everyone he knew getting killed and then having to be whisked away and being powerless to stop it. Mm-hmm. Whereby it seems like, from, day couple into him being taken seriously as a foundling, he's already had a training weapon strapped on him and shot another kid. There's definitely a different advancement in defending yourself or being able to attack. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was a very interesting sort of potential see into Grogu. And that's always one of the problems with Grogu. It's a problem with the Mandalorians. You can't see their facial features. So really all you have is their words. And with Grogu, you get the facial features, but you got no words. So you get... It's getting half of, now that one's blind and that guy's deaf, it's like, I can't get the full thing.
We're going to work this out.
Yeah.
Well, and I just think, and it's so cool. The only thing I forgot to mention earlier, I wanted to add there that was such a neat thought was I thought was how it's the combination too, or the overlap, right, between his Mandalorian training and this path he's on, but the thing that makes him successful, you can argue in that square off with Ragnar is the force jump.
Yes.
Which is cool too. So this idea of he's pulling in, and didn't Din say something or Bo says oh, did you teach him that? He's like, not me. He's like, I don't know. He went after this Jedi dude and he came back and he's jumping all the time.
And any more armor on that little body, he's going to have to use the force all the time just to walk.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, there's no way. All right, well, that's it from us for this week. So we want to know what you all thought of this episode of The Mandalorian. My notes still said the Bad Batch. It happens. So please let us know your thoughts by emailing us any feedback you have over to starwars@sqpn.com or visiting the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can also check out StarQuest on Facebook, on Twitter. Just look up StarQuest Media on Facebook and at SQPN on Twitter. You can also find previous episodes of this show by visiting sqpn.com/Star Wars. We'd also like to take a moment to thank our Secrets of Star Wars patrons, including John C., Frank T., Tom C., James N., and Eric B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all of the shows at StarQuest. And please consider joining them over at sqpn.com/give. Please tell all your friends to follow The Secrets of Star Wars in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. Just Google us and follow everywhere you can. We really appreciate it. And as always, you can get all kinds of cool merch over at our merch store, sqpn.com/merch, MERCH. So we'll be back next week to unpack episode 5 of Mandalorian season 3, which I kind of like, by the way, guys, that we don't know the titles of the episodes. You know, as you do with Bad Batch, that's fine, but it's nice to have that surprise there. So mark your calendars because you're not going to want to miss it. So until next time, Kathryn Laffrey, thank you so much for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you. This was fun as always.
Absolutely. And Patrick Mason, thank you too. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Wonderful to be here.
And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. PlayStation Portable. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/PSP.